What's going on, everyone? It's Adrian from Draft Time, and welcome to another Top Sleepers, Value Picks, and Studs video. In this video, I'm going to do exactly that. I'm going to give you my top sleepers, my top studs, and my top value picks for tonight for FanDuel and for DraftKings. Tonight is December 26th, the day after Christmas, and we have a 6-game slate tonight. Some pretty good value guys out there. And at the end of the video, I'm going to give you my top lineups that are generated by using our lineup optimization tool, which you can access on drafttime.com. Again, you can sign up for a free 7-day trial and try out the optimizer. But anyways, before I get into my picks, I want to go over some injury updates. So first of all, we have Karl Anthony Towns again is listed as questionable. So if he does miss the game, more value obviously to Gorgui Dieng again. Another injury that you need to keep an eye on is the injury to Bogdan Bogdanovic. If he does in fact miss the game, then that's going to add a lot of value to a lot of the other Kings players. They'll have to pick up that scoring void, namely Marvin Bagley, Bjelica, or even De'Aaron Fox or Buddy Hield will definitely get some value added to them. So keep an eye on that injury. And then Luka is listed as questionable, so you want to keep an eye on Luka because he's one of my top studs for FanDuel. So you do want to keep an eye on him. If he does in fact miss the game, it doesn't really add that much more value to any of the Mavericks players because they're already priced as if Luka is not playing because he's missed the past few games or so. And last but not least, you got Marcus Morris, who is questionable for the Knicks. And if he does miss the game, then that's going to add a lot of value to Bobby Portis. So keep an eye on that one. That's a big one. Even though Marcus Morris isn't really a marquee name, it does make Bobby Portis a lot more valuable. But anyway, so let's go ahead and get into my top value pick for FanDuel, and that's going to be Blake Griffin. He is $5,600 on FanDuel, and we're projecting him to score 34.78 fantasy points on FanDuel. Now, look, I know he clearly isn't himself this season, which is fine. We don't need him to be Blake Griffin, but he's $5,600, so we just need him to play, to score in the 30s to hit pretty good value. Now, he's going up against the worst defense in the NBA in the Wizards, and they give up the most fantasy points to opposing big men. So if there ever was a game for him to get back on track, this is it. Now, he's had some bad fantasy games this season, but he's been a part of a lot of blowouts. He's had a 6.4 fantasy point game where he got injured in the second quarter. So if you just look at his per minutes number, he's not doing horrible. So when you have a guy with his type of per minute numbers expected to play 30 plus minutes going against one of the worst defenses in the league, and he's only $5,600, you got to pick him up. You can't let your emotions get in the way because of some of his past performances. And actually, DraftKings agrees that Blake Griffin is underpriced on FanDuel because they have him listed at $6,800 on DraftKings. So more of a FanDuel value pick, not a DraftKings value pick, but definitely some good value there. My DraftKings top value pick, that's going to be Elfrid Payton. He's $5,300 on DraftKings, and we're projecting him to score 32.78 fantasy points. Now, he's getting the start again for New York. His minutes have gone up significantly since they made him the starter in the last 2 games. And he's averaging 36 fantasy points in these last 2 games that he's started. Now, he fills up the stat sheet with rebounds, assists, and steals. So that's why he's a really good fantasy player. And he's going up against a Nets defense who give up 50.1 fantasy points to opposing point guards. Also, Dennis Smith is out. The news just came in. So definitely huge value for Elfrid Payton. That's why he's my top value pick for DraftKings. Now, my top stud for FanDuel, that's going to be Luka Doncic. He is $10,500 on FanDuel, and we're projecting him to score 55.15 fantasy points. I mean, it's pretty obvious why he's my top stud on FanDuel, and that's because they have him priced in the 10,000s. I know he's coming back from injury, but I think he'll be fine. And now he is questionable, so you want to keep an eye. If he doesn't end up playing, then obviously he's not my top stud. But he's a skilled player who doesn't really rely on his explosiveness, which is why I think he'll be fine. He's averaging 53.67 fantasy points on the season, but that number was drastically skewed by his last game where he only played 2 minutes and then he got hurt. You take that game away and you'll see that he's averaging around 56 fantasy points per game. So no brainer. Luka is my top stud for FanDuel if he does end up playing, which I think he will. Now for DraftKings, my top stud is going to be Andre Drummond. He's $10,000 and we're projecting him to score 54.76 fantasy points. He's $10,000 and he's going up against the Wizards. That's what I like. That's what I like about him. Like I was saying earlier, the Wizards give up the most fantasy points to opposing big men, and they're one of the worst overall defenses in the league. When you got a guy like Drummond going against that, you got to pick him up. No brainer. Now let's get into my top sleeper. Okay, and this is for both FanDuel and DraftKings, and that's going to be Josh Okogie. He's $3,700 on FanDuel, and we're projecting him to score 19.27, and he's $3,400 on DraftKings, where we're projecting him to score 19.18. Now, he's been slumping despite being a starter. He's only averaging 10.16 fantasy points per game over his last 5, which is why I'm calling him a sleeper pick. I don't think a lot of people are going to own him. I think a lot of people are going to be deterred by that. But the thing I like about him is he's averaging 25 minutes per game. Shabazz is questionable, so if Shabazz ends up missing the game, he should see even more minutes. Jared Culver has seen his minutes go down lately, so the opportunity is there. He just needs to produce, which he's capable of doing, but he is a gamble. He could give you a really bad game, but he can also give you, a 35-plus point game, which he's capable of doing. He's done it a couple times this season. He did it last season. So I think he's a gamble that's worth considering in one or two of your GPP lineups. Now, with all that being said, let's go ahead and run the lineup optimizer for FanDuel for tonight. And here you got Derrick Rose, Luka Doncic, Bruce Brown, Donovan Mitchell, Taurean Prince, Danilo Gallinari, Marvin Bagley, Blake Griffin, and Andre Drummond. Okay, now let's go ahead and run it for DraftKings. And you got Alfred Payton, Ish Smith, Chris Paul, Shabazz Napier, who is questionable, Buddy Hield, Marvin Bagley, Jaren Jackson, and Andre Drummond. So again, guys, keep in mind those injuries that I mentioned earlier, because at least one of those guys who I mentioned earlier is likely to miss the game tonight. So these lineups are definitely going to change before lock. So make sure you sign up for Draft Time for a free 7-day trial and update these lineups before lock. I can't emphasize enough how you need to update your lineups before lock, because they almost always change, especially when there's a lot of questionable players like there is tonight. But anyways, good luck to everyone tonight. Let me know what you think of my top picks, and peace.